I always thought it was just a little unfair that World of Darkness never really caught on like other tabletops. D&D, Pathfinder, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, all these games going on strong, and you've got World of Darkness, what I think is one of the best tabletop games I've ever seen in my life. It's niche. It's niche. I have a little channel. I know I will never get big just talking about this and this alone, but I don't care about getting big. I just want to keep this alive. It's a little hard to because when White Wolf has an issue, it's a massive issue. And every single World of Darkness game, it's got a big albatross around the neck, a big elephant in the room. I'm going to go over them bit by bit, talk about if they're really that big of an issue, and what exactly can be done to change it. I am Johnny, I'm with the Getter Group channel, and let's go into this. I'll be talking about the big six: Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, Wraith, Changeling, and Hunter. We're leaving Demon the Fallen, Orpheus, Quaijin, and Mummy the Resurrection off the table, and yeah, I'm not talking about Street Fighter either. Let's get right into this. We will begin with the game that everybody knows already, Vampire the Masquerade. The Mafia simulator, if the Mafia was made up of vampires, well, who's to say they aren't already? This is a game made for roleplay, and it's got so many good stories in it. The overlying meta plot with Cain and Lilith, the antediluvians and their individual stories, the lore characters from Ekaterina to Theo Bell. So much good stuff. So much good stuff in Vampire the Masquerade. I really do like this game. I got introduced to Vampire through Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and I feel like a lot of people got introduced to Vampire through that game. And this game looked fantastic. I thought this was going to be the game I was going to play for the rest of my life, but it turns out there's just one gigantic hindrance in the game, and that is horribly unbalanced combat. Unbalanced. What do I mean by this? I'm going to ask you who's going to win a fight between a Bruja and a Toreador. I don't care if both of them have the same amount of celerity, that Bruja is going to win that fight majority of the time, unless you are bombing your rolls. It seems that some of these clans are way stronger than others, and it doesn't always fit the meta plot. You have the Assamites with the ability to just cause people to drown in their own blood by walking past them. There's Michi with vicissitude, the Tremere with thaumaturgy, how creative a Setite can get with Serpentis, the broken mechanics behind Mortis and Necromancy with the Giovanni. I mean, have you really gone in depth and looked at what the Giovanni can do with zombies? If you let a Giovanni player make a ton of zombies in advance, that is going to be a player that's never going to die, never going to have to worry about dying at any point in the game. It takes so many stakes out of the game. And I feel like that's its big issue. How does combat work in Vampire? I don't think we ever got a satisfying answer. I mean, you get celerity, and that breaks the turn order. You get stuff like Necromancy, now we're playing Warhammer, and in a game where most attacks end in a single punch, if you can get more and more powers that ensure you get more punches in, or just negate the damage from a punch at all, you're going to break this game. And some discipline combinations that you can get very early on just absolutely destroy combat. And this is a game that's supposed to be more of a slow burn social kind of game. I'm not really incentivized to play a Ventru when I can just play a character that runs in and just smokes whoever he's supposed to make the deal with. There's the Masquerade, sure, but if I'm strong enough, then why should I go along with the Camarilla idea of being a mafia, and I can just enslave a town with a Sabbat? Sure, there's a whole meta plot aspect to it, but if the power gamer is at the table, he's gonna power game. And I feel like you just get a little too strong in Vampire for its own good. And, well, we're going to talk about Werewolf next. Great. Okay. Our next game is Werewolf, and should I go ahead and just break my own format already? I made a tier list where I was talking about every World of Darkness game, and I if I'm remembering right, this was close to the bottom. I think the reason is obvious. If you know about Werewolf already, the answer's obvious. It's the same as Vampire, but in a more extreme sense. Werewolves are just too strong for this game. You have a game made for combat. The rage mechanic, dude. The rage. Just getting extra turns off of your rage. You spend a point of temporary rage, you get more movement to get an ability off, you get an extra attack. So much stuff revolves around rage. How do you get rage? Just be angry. Fail rolls. Act in character. And so much stuff will just drop rage right in your lap. There's the risk of gaining too much rage and going crazy, but if you're playing Werewolf the way you're supposed to, that's never going to be an issue. You will always have rage to use. And Gnosis and Willpower, yeah, you need those in order to use some of the crazier gifts and crazier rituals, but in all the times I've seen Werewolf be played, and times that I've played Werewolf, I've never really felt the incentive to get a fetish. If you're looking at our live play that we're doing right now, Rage Cross Appalachia, I think my build with Ends the Road, it's close to done. I don't see the need to get a fetish anytime soon. I've got my strength stat and my dexterity stat close to where I want it. I'm good. And that's right out the gate with character creation, using freebie points and backgrounds. I think I'm good. And what social situation am I going to get into as a werewolf where rage isn't going to be helpful? Sure, you have roleplay in this game. Though this is a game that's about a war, Werewolf is a war story, I'm going to make a warrior character. It's a little hard to convince somebody to play a Child of Gaia in this game. You have a few gifts that are about talking, that are about persuasion and alternate solutions besides just caving somebody's face in with your fist, but it's not that reliable. You need some of these gifts rely on your NPC that you're talking to failing a roll or you succeeding a roll. And the Children of Gaia themselves, their most useful gifts are more along the lines of debuffs than bonuses to roleplay. So, yeah, I think Werewolf is a little bit too combat centered for its own good. It's a shame too because you can have Mafia games with Werewolf, you just have to really try with those. And a lot of those games will go without a single roll. You can do a Mafia game with a Shadow Lord. That is possible. You can play that out. You can make that build with a Glasswalker. You can do it with an Actena, a Silverfang, but at the end of the day, this is a war game. This is a game where you will spend your best sessions in combat fighting waves and waves of enemies. And there's no massive stake in any of these fights unless an enemy's doing aggravated damage because you can just regenerate all of that right back. There's a reason why when we made 3.5 that combat was super deadly in that game. It's because combat just goes on for a little too long in Werewolf. I love this game, but man, has it got some issues. Okay, Mage the Ascension. Good God. This is the most complex game in the World of Darkness. This is the hardest to wrap your head around. I'm still reading Mage the Ascension text. This is the game that I've spent the most time reading about, and I still don't feel like I have that concrete of a grasp on it. I've listened to other people on YouTube and Spotify talk about this game, and this has got a severe learning curve, but that's not the issue I'm talking about. There are some games where it will feel like you're having a theological debate rather than a tabletop experience. It's great. I love having conversations like that in any tabletop game. Any sort of session where I feel like I've walked away and I learned something from other people, it's great. Though there is something getting in the way of you actually being a mage, and that is the mechanics of the magic in Mage. That is consensus and paradox. I like these systems and I absolutely hate them. I think this makes and it simultaneously breaks the game. Consensus and paradox, the rules as to what you can cast. Because of how magic works in Mage, people need to believe you can cast a spell and pass it off as something scientific or natural or freaky. Nobody can look at a spell and say that is magic, because that will cause a paradox. And how paradox happens, well, it can range from your character getting maimed and mangled to out and out killed, which makes it very hard to play a game of Mage that is not within a, I don't know, why is it that you wizards hang around? Your towers, your basements, wherever you're casting spells. If you want to cast a spell in public, well, God bless you, because you are about to suffer a serious paradox from that. You are going to get some serious backlash from that. The Tenacracy isn't even immune to this. You can't just throw down a teleporter pad and then warp to the moon. No, you have to convince the public that what you're doing isn't magic. And this is a mechanic that prevents the people who are playing magic users from using their magic. Mage was already a really tricky game, but it makes performing any feat of magic around a civilian almost impossible. And performing magic around vampires, werewolves, and wraiths, well, you can just do anything. There's no stakes to it. Just roll your ret, spend your quintessence. You will succeed whatever it is you're doing. It's a game where it feels like the stakes are too high and way too low at the same time. And it flip-flops constantly between scenes. I really like Mage. I really like the lore of Mage. I think this is a great, fantastic game. But it's also a game that, honestly, I would never recommend to anybody. Unless you have a story set in mind with what you are going to do with Mage, I honestly don't know how to get people into it. And I think, even though this is considered one of the big 3 games, I've seen more people talk about Hunter the Reckoning than I have seen people talk about Mage the Ascension. And I think Paradox might be the reason behind it. Wraith the Oblivion. Okay, let's not beat around the bush with this. Let's not beat around. Let's just get right into the issue. It's Shadows and Angst. If you know about Wraith, it's Shadows and Angst. Wraith is... I don't think you can really tell a story like you can in Wraith. This is a dark game. It takes you to a dark place as player characters and as players. You are thinking stuff you normally wouldn't think with Wraith the Oblivion. With death being the theme, the flavor of Wraith, and darkness all around you, this is as dark as the World of Darkness gets. It's great. I think Wraith is a fantastic medium for anything other than a tabletop game. I love you, Wraith, but because of what you did with Shadows and Angst, yeah, I wonder why you didn't work as Inferno, and I wonder why you didn't work as... You are the one and only World of Darkness game that had to have the plug pulled on it. Because, yeah, it was obvious that Dream was dead. Yeah, because of how the Shadow and Angst system works, with other players playing each other's shadows, this leads to everybody's least favorite kind of behavior when it comes to World of Darkness games. World of Darkness games, they have always been team-based. One tribe of werewolf and one clan of vampire can't solve a chronicle by themselves. You're supposed to work as a team with every one of these games. And kind of encouraging this level of darkness between players, if it's the storyteller and the storyteller alone, I still think it's an issue. Because having a voice in the back of a player character's head, constantly tell them, give up, give into the darkest parts of yourself, lash out at others, lash out at yourself, it's not what people usually want to do when they want to play a tabletop game. They want to come in and have fun. There's a reason why, well, Warhammer pulled the plug on tabletops for a while. It's because it's a little hard to sell a setting that is as dark and as bitter as this. People want to play and have fun with a tabletop game, and this is more like a misery simulator than anything else. I think Wraith was doomed to fail. I'm going to talk about solutions at the end of this video. I honestly don't have anything for Wraith. I think this is a game that's worth checking out, but if well, when we run Wraith on this channel, I don't think I'm going to run it for nearly as long as our Werewolf games. It's going to be, what, 4 sessions, and that might be it. I love you, Wraith. I would love to read a novel. I would love to play another Wraith the Oblivion video game. And you're living a better life as Orpheus. If you want to play Wraith, just go ahead and play Orpheus. That's how you fix Wraith the Oblivion. But Wraith as in of itself, yeah, I got nothing for you. Changeling the Dreaming is quickly forming a special place in my heart. I really do love this game. I've never seen a game quite as versatile as this, from what you want to do with themes, story, setting. You can really do anything with Changeling. I honestly struggle to find problems with Changeling the Dreaming. There are so many different ways you can play this game. With how they took your standard powers, you no longer have a straightforward one single thing you can do like you did with gifts and disciplines. And it's not too abstract like, say, the entirety of Mage the Ascension. You have a very interesting system with arts and realms, with how you can use your powers as a changeling. I feel like mechanically, this game is solid. It is a very solid game. Yeah, I guess you are a little too strong as a changeling. Have you seen what Gimmicks does? That is a very easy power to get your hands on. Yeah, Wraith and Mage, those are hard sells. Changeling, it's a hard sell, but in a different way. And that is, what are we doing? What are we doing in this game again? I mean, changing the Dreaming's meta plot kind of forced it into a pigeonhole. With the advancement of human technology and closing the gates of Arcadia, how true Fae can only exist as changelings possessing human bodies, and the entirety of the Accordance War. I think too many things happened in Changeling that you can't really change, and the books don't really give alternatives to the events. If you are playing a Changeling game that's between the Middle Ages and 1970, 1969, you know what the setting is going to look like, and there's very little you can do to change it within lore. If you're playing a game after 1970, you know what the world is going to look like, and there's very little you can do to change it outside of lore. Completely ripping out and changing the lore. Every Changeling game is on a railroad in terms of a meta perspective. You can have crazy stories you can do with Changeling, but it's all going to end the same way. When Times of Judgment came out and every other book got its little conclusion, the best the Changelings could do was just throw themselves off into the space and the deep umbra and to infinity and beyond, and there's not any way to fix the problems in Changeling the Dreaming. If there was a solution, it's already gone, and the other best solution would be to just kiss up to the werewolves and hope that their war for Gaia and the fight during the apocalypse will play in your favor. Maybe not if certain tribes like Red Mountains or Geffen survive. Yeah, it kind of begs the question as to what exactly are we doing? What are we doing here? Vampire games, you're able to prevent Gehenna. Werewolf games, you're preventing the apocalypse. Mage the Ascension, you're ascending. But Changeling, there's not really anything you can do to affect the meta plot, and I think that's what turns people off from this game. And I don't think it's that big of an issue. This is an easy thing to fix. Just focus on the present events at hand. Stop looking at where the journey is going to get you. It's the question, what matters more, the destination or the journey when you're taking a trip? And it feels like Changing the Dreaming is a little too dead set on the destination. It's the world of darkness. There's very little you can do to give yourself a happy ending in the setting, but I think Changeling's unhappy ending is just a little overbearing. And now we've got Hunter the Reckoning. I really like this game. I really like it. I like the idea of these superhumans ordained by God coming in and taking their own lives back. I really like the idea of Hunter the Reckoning. this is a great game to get into. It really encourages team play. I have, in all my World of Darkness games, Hunter the Reckoning is the game that I've seen the players thinking out their means of attack and their means of escape more so than any other game. Vampire, Werewolf, you get power and resources just dropped into your lap. No, Hunter is a thinking man's tabletop game. But you need to know Hunter for you to have that kind of experience. Hunter the Reckoning has got a lot of pictures in it of average everyday humans going into vampire coteries with shotguns and swords and tearing the place down, and that's not what Hunter the Reckoning is. This game sets you up for failure. It's got a pretty poor way of explaining itself. Hunter the Reckoning wants you to think it's Dynasty Warriors. You're going in, fighting all of these zombies and vampires with one sword, one pistol, and you're going to win. You just go in, sweep house, everything's fine. It gives you some crazy weapons too, like the chainsaw. Was it 5 aggravated damage, and it pierces defenses? It's a fantastic weapon, but if you get hit, you're a human. You take 3 levels of lethal or aggravated damage, you start bleeding. You die very quickly in Hunter the Reckoning if you're not planning things out. I have seen a ton of stories of people that have played Hunter and went in thinking that was something else, that you were going to go in and clean house. No, a lot of NPCs in this game are super deadly and will take you out in 1 or 2 clean hits. You're not going into this like Dante from Devil May Cry. You are an average man pulled off the street, and you've been ordained to fight vampires. You're not some sort of messiah. You don't start off that way. You are very squishy in Hunter the Reckoning. And I feel like the game, sure, it's flavorful. You get pro-human propaganda in this game that's meant to psych you up to get you into the hunt, but you are not as strong as you think you are. And if you go in thinking you have the same level of power that you do with Werewolf, yeah, you're going to be sadly disappointed with this game. It's a shame too, because I really do like Hunter, but so many people have bounced off this game, and I think they're going to stay bounced off, and it kind of does upset me. Now, I don't think any of these games are necessarily bad, and I don't think any of these games are ruined by any of these issues. You can have fun with Wraith. You can have fun with it. Even though that's a very bleak, very dark game, you can still have a great time with it. And if you're having fun at your tabletop game with any of these games, good on you. Some people can just push through issues, but what if these issues are just that bad? If you just don't want to play a World of Darkness game because of these issues. These are the big ones. I know there's a bunch of other smaller, petty issues with World of Darkness games, but there is no perfect tabletop game. I'm not going to pick through every single problem with a fine-tooth comb. I'll just give you the solutions I have in mind. With Vampire, 5th edition, it wasn't perfect. It removed a lot of disciplines, but I don't think the powers of the disciplines were that bad. Potence was get this TLDR power in every edition. It just did the one thing, and that's all it did, and it broke the game, kind of, sort of, with the sheer level of damage you could do if you built your character right. In 5th edition, you got detailed descriptions as to what Potence could do, levels 1 to 5. Same with the other powers like Celerity and Fortitude, and Blood Sorcery got cranked down a little. I think the powers themselves were fine. The hunger system, I don't like. I really don't like that. I feel like if you bring in the blood points from previous editions with the level of destruction in 5th edition, I think that would be the perfect happy medium with a vampire game. If you just dial back the power scaling in Vampire and make players focus on the shitty dealings, put more stock into stuff like Presence and Dominate, then Vampire, I really don't think it's got any other major issue to it. With Werewolf, I have 2 ideas. You either make the combat deadlier, which is what we at the Galliard group did with 3.5, to kind of de-incentivize players from just going gung-ho into a situation, and you need to think about other strategies and focus on stats that aren't just melee and brawl and strength and dexterity. Or with your rage, How about the more points that gets, the more temporary rage you have, sitting around not doing anything, that begins to take dice or give automatic failures to some of your manipulation, charisma, intelligence, or wits rolls. That you're too blinded by your anger, you're stewing on your emotions, you can't focus on the task at hand. It would give credence to playing a Stargazer or a Child of Gaia, where you would need to go out and burn the rage, or just not get rage at all, try to avoid getting it, in order to play a more dialogue focused character. With Mage the Ascension, I would dial back just how severe paradoxes can be. Sure, we need the paradox system because Mage can't necessarily function as a system without paradox. You need a drawback to prevent players from being too strong. But paradox, say, removing an arm for casting a fireball, no, I think that's too strong. I think it should deal damage to you. Say, casting a spell in public, you break the masquerade, you take a point of, say, lethal damage that needs to be healed away. You don't necessarily start bleeding out. That just damages you for a little while and eventually leads to stuff like wound penalties. That looks like a better trade off. If you're using magic in a desperate situation, it's a high risk, high reward thing to cast magic, and you're not killed for doing what you should be doing as a wizard. Paradox gets super deadly in Mage, so making Paradox a lot less deadly would make a lot of Mage players very happy and probably bring a few people onto Mage. Wraith, just play Orpheus instead. Just play Orpheus instead. Changeling, I think it has the same issue as Hunter the Reckoning, and that is just the books themselves just changing around the lore, changing around the meta plot, making Changeling a little bit more hopeful, saying if this, and this is done, then maybe the She can change their ways. Maybe the gates of Arcadia can open again. Maybe you can live in the future where there is childlike imagination and future technology existing in the same spot. That's where I think the Knockers were going as a kith, and then they didn't really go anywhere. I feel like trying to find a synthesis between futurism and imagination would be a great way to fix some of the issues with changing to dreaming instead of this apocalyptic Thomas Edison invented the light bulb and now we're all going to die kind of rhetoric. While with Hunter the Vigil got across the point that you're an average man and you're going to die at the hands of vampires, until it got into factions like the Lucifuge, but I digress. With Hunter the Reckoning, if you changed around the dialogue in the books and the flavor text and the subtext and told hunters like it was, that you're playing a dangerous game with the most dangerous of prey, you are more than likely going to die. You would get your hunter players to focus a little bit more on self-preservation instead of just running into a fight and more than likely dying in one session. These are just a few tips I have on in the back of my mind, and I think this is the end of the video. Well, whether or not you agreed with what I said or what I didn't say, I do thank you for watching. Yep, you managed to sit through this entire unscripted... Oh, could you tell this was unscripted? This unscripted video with me. Alright, I'll see you guys next time I have a crazy thought like this.